Thank you, everyone. Thanks very much for attending today's press conference. I'll take the first question. Yes, Mrs. Warner?
Thank you, Mr. President. As you know, your current budget proposal will result in a $1.48 trillion deficit for this fiscal year. Do you agree that you will be held accountable to the American voters for the deficit?
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. Let me say this. And I want to be perfectly clear on this issue. As Chief Executive of the United States, I take full responsibility. Even though the Bush administration cut taxes like a $50 hooker removing her clothes. And even though the Bush administration committed us to 2 foreign wars. Not 1, but 2. But as we say when playing ball, I'm left holding the ball now. And I'm taking my best shot. No matter how crappy my position on the floor may be. Next question, please. Yes, Mr. Talbot.
Mr. President, at the time of the BP oil well blowout in the Gulf of Mexico, you stated that you take full responsibility. Do you also take responsibility for the cleanup in the Gulf?
Thank you, Mr. Talbot. At the time of the spill I said that as Chief Executive I am ultimately responsible. So yes, I take full responsibility for the oil spill and for the resulting cleanup. Even though the spill was caused by a foreign oil company. And even though Mother Nature herself will be doing most of the cleanup. Next question. Mrs. Warner?
What about declining test scores in our nation's schools, Mr. President? Do you take responsibility for that too?
Yes, Mrs. Warner. The education of our young people is one of our top priorities, even though they may be little video game playing slackers. So the buck stops here. I take full responsibility.
What about childhood obesity? Little fatties watching YouTube instead of playing basketball. Your responsibility.
Yes, Mrs. Warner. My responsibility.
Declining competitiveness of American industry. Greedy, soul-sucking investment bankers. Your fault?
Right. My bad.
The housing crisis? People buying houses when they should have been happy living in a trailer park? All your fault?
CC, Senorita. That one too.
Hollywood movies that appeal only to teenagers. Soggy popcorn in the theaters.
Big affirmativo on that one, Talbot.
Pamela Anderson's failed marriages.
Sadly, yes. Although I can't say I've met Miss Anderson herself. Or Kid Oak. Or Tommy Lee for that matter.
Bad fast food. The indigestion that follows. The heartbreak of psoriasis?
Yepper. Guilty as charged.
Mrs. O'Leary's cat stuck in the tree in Peoria, Illinois.
10-4 on the cat, little buddy.
Is there anything going on in the country that you are not responsible for, Mr. President?
Well, let me say this. I've never made John Boehner cry. But I hope to in 2012.